Korea was interesting, right? It was a very small one, conference, because where it was, and then it moved, and so a lot of people didn't travel. So I think there was kind of even, half the size of what it is here. And so it was in a hotel, so more people kind of co-located. And then, there were some local researchers, but mostly people had no idea about Korean language, Korean culture, or finding your way around, So we ended, most nights there was a kind of dive bar just near the hotel called Beer Tunnel, which has become sort of infamous for the amount of drinking that went on there. And it was quite interesting, so you'd sort of help yourself they had a bank of fridges along the wall, and it had price points for different doors for the alcohol behind it. And so you just help yourself, and then you'd have to, at the end of the night, you'd take up your bottles and pay for them. And so amongst another of, I'm sure, many other anecdotes and weird things that happened in that place, was that it just got really messy because people were in there for hours and just drinking, and then there was just bottles everywhere. So who owned which bottles, and then trying to claim them, and then not being able to speak the language, and so just this kind of chaos. When it came to fixing up the bill, was quite funny.
There are a lot of people who like shoes at AoIR, and there are a lot of people who like John Fluevog's shoes in particular at AoIR, including very senior people like yourself, so the kind of founding mothers of AoIR. And then people just started sharing the invitation to the shoe store opening on Twitter. And then randomly clumps of people showed up. So there was these confused designer-y people of Denver trying to fancily open a store, and then there was this mass of internet researchers trying on shoes and buying vast amounts of shoes, and then there was John Fluevog there taking pictures with all of us, which I think is it's a perfect metaphor for AoIR. Things happen and you get to meet amazing people, and you probably end up having nice shoes.
I was trying to think about what the first one was that I went to, and I think it was actually Toronto, which was such a fun conference to go to because I don't know if you would remember this, but that was the first time that I had seen Terry Sempt in 20 years. And so I remember walking in the door and having read her work, and we kind of emailed back and forth, so I knew that we were going to see each other, but I hadn't seen her in person, and I'd been really good friends with her in high school. So it was really fun to come down the escalator and see her standing there talking to other people, and we both kind of screamed, went, "Ah!" It was just like being back in high school again. So it was but I think in some ways, finding a friend that I had known a long time in the AoIR community is something that I think is sort of typical in a way of how we all become really friends with one another over the years. And so I think that AoIR can be a community of scholars as well as a community that cares about one another.
So the day that we got married, Matthias puts a picture, it's right from his iPhone, so it's not even a particularly clear picture. There's, a beautiful camera there, but we take this on the iPhone. I think it might have even been a selfie. And he says, let the internets rejoice, I married Nora Madison. And I noticed that actually one of the first people to pick it up was Nancy Bain. And she's like, I love AoIR weddings. And Teresa Sempt too. So there's a couple, Andrew Herman. So there's a couple of the people who have been really sort of the core group of AoIR since the early days. And they all caught it, and they were all like, oh, we love AoIR weddings. And so they retweeted it out, and it has been the single most liked piece of social media content I have ever produced.